Welcome back to Sigma Programming. I want you to look at the scoreboard of life, the scoreboard of society. While kings and queens from different realms cheat death and step on and off the world stage, the citizens have to buy a dozen of eggs for the price of 3 gallons of gas. The rulers never had plans to launch nuclear missiles. Those missiles were distractions from the real nuclear war, which is the war against your nucleus, which is your nuclear family. Whatever death and prison can't sever, employment will. So walls were built around cotton fields to transform plantations into private corporations. So any employee making less than $1 million a season is actually engaged in sharecropping. Wages from income versus cost of living balances out into a sharecropping scenario. Vampires are real. They don't bite necks. They buy bags of blood straight out the hospital. This is why our blood is drawn so often. The vampires, they just arrange for blood transfusions twice a year, and they live for centuries. Scripture says life is in the blood. And to a vampire, all blood is good blood. Meanwhile, blood ties are severed by circumstances. Family reunions are conducted online. Churches are about as empty as the schools should be. Every sickness in the hospital is being breathed in by anybody who visits. That's why the color is white, is used to guide you to the light and speed up your death process, because keeping you alive is more expensive than allowing you to die off. Death is cheap. Life is expensive. Economics, that was the nuclear bomb that blew the family unit apart. The blue bloods, they get to live for centuries at the price of publicity. Meanwhile, population growth slows down, both man and animal. War of the worlds is a distraction too. It's really war of the words. This is a battle over language, jargon, lingo. And the batteries they put in our backs are cheap too. They're not Duracell nor Energizer. Battery is just another word for assault. So violence is becoming our backbone. We are energized by chasing a rabbit, so our cells endure. Duracell. The cells we are imprisoned in endure. Be it prison bars, Wi-Fi bars, hip-hop bars, local bars, or candy bars, it's still up to the bar association to decide which bars last the longest. Teens in hardship proclaim emancipation and go off on their own at 15 and 16, while their neighborhood gets bought out by people who cram 10 family members into a 2-bedroom apartment. And even the people who promote voting don't believe what they say. They just know they have to speak favorably of it, even though fraud was found in the voting system consistently since the late 2000s. Cemeteries are running out of space, full of bodies who wait on the promise that no one has received. And while the living dead bury the physically dead, the idea of a promise still holds billions hostage. The rulers still see God as a stage of consciousness, not as a person, and the peasants protest against this, while the person known as God allows the ones who serve no God to dominate those who wait for a God to save them. And they do not get saved in this life only by one way. If they do get saved at all, is by dying out of this life. The future is scary enough to force people to cling to the past so strongly that they cry out to the ancestors who've been off the scene for millennia. And don't worry about the lasers or the chemtrails or the flu or the jab or the education system or the monetary system or the controllers or the food or the housing or any of that. Just watch your shows and eat your vegetables. You'll be fine. This generation is in a dangerous position. The generation that was born in the early 1980s are the most targeted group in the history of this world. They are the bridge between the old world order and the new world order. The new world order is for the slaves. The old world order is for the slave masters. The OWO is still intact, but it only represents the top 1% / any true revolutionaries. They raise armies of woke folk to keep you in a dream where you are awake. But in a lucid dream, you are still asleep. So what is needed is lucid wakefulness, because many people fall asleep the moment they get up in the morning. Meanwhile, every camera on the planet forms a singular crystal ball in the hands of fortune tellers who wear gloves made of human skin. Whatever doesn't make it to those gloves gets thrown back into the food supply. High-speed internet is found in the drinking water. We haven't seen a real blue sky in 30 years. Those born in the 1980s are considered the fallen angels of modern history. Such and such has been scheming on us since the 1480s. Mitochondria research involves more than replenishing the overly fatigued. It's the reprogramming of the human genome. Death won't get us out of this either, because same thing is waiting for us on the other side. They're fighting in heaven and crying in hell, because this one space we call everywhere is housing for both realms. If this resonates with you, welcome to the real world. If all of this is still a little too far-fetched, then take off your sandals, Moses, for the ground you stand on is hologram. Crack was sold in the 80s, and there's a new crack being sold in the 2020s. Cosmic hustlers staying awake for 3 and 4 days straight, selling cracks in the matrix, cracks in the system. The new form of crack can only be ingested by listening. It's an auditory drug. Final note, unless you master astral projection, you'll never make it over the Antarctic wall that separates you from the next planet over. You see the scoreboard now? Want to be a magician or a statistic? You choose.